So we're going to touch on a topic here that was brought directly to my attention. I don't go searching for this stuff, but it seems like over the last 6 months, let's say, there's been some focus towards me, some focus towards some other individuals in the industry as consultants about the information that we're giving out. Well, 2 days ago, I was actually, last night was the last of it. It started 2 days ago. I was actually sent a video link by 2 of my clients and 2 of my followers, so 4 total followers. And the link was, I think you've been called out. And it's funny because the reason that I labeled this, I've been called out, is because all 4 of those messages that were sent to me all had that topic. I think you've been called out. This guy just called you out. I think this guy did this. I think he called you out. So to me, it's not a direct attack, because here's the deal. I don't know if it was directed directly towards me or if it was directed towards someone else in the industry that has way more followers than I've got, and way more knowledge on a lot of things that I've got. But we each believe our own certain things. There's some stuff that I do that other folks, such as my hinge or my hub style bedding designs, that really resonates with some folks on this channel. But I've heard from some folks in the past that some consultants think I'm full of it. Well, and so we'll use the term, I think it was full of bees this and wax that, or whatever we were called out on this video, that we were everything bad or nothing nice, or whatever the term was that that it was. So I got a chuckle out of it because I did watch it. I don't watch these things. Usually if I'm on there, of course I'm on YouTube, I'm always looking at my channel, I'm answering stuff, and there's always stuff that comes up and I'll click on it. I watch other people's videos too, but to go hunting for somebody else's advice to tear it apart, to me, is pretty comical. So we're going to touch on a couple things here. We're going to clear some stuff up, because this isn't just because of these 4 comments. It's because I've had some questions and concerns from clients as well, that have had other folks work on their stuff and then have reached out to me because of my belief towards some things that pop up from hinge cutting. So the title is, I've been called out, but let's talk about hinge cutting. So in this video, one of the topics that were touched on were, it was the main topic of the directed attacks, I guess you will, or pinpoint, a couple of people here. And like I said, I don't know if it was directed exactly towards me, but it was directed towards a couple of us. Let's just say that. So the first thing with me, guys, is we're going to talk about why I don't promote, and I've said this before, but we're going to say it again, why I don't promote high hinge cuts. The number one reason is simply the safety feature. It has to be, if you are going to have a YouTube channel, this is my belief, if you're going to have a YouTube channel, which is free advice to the followers that are watching this, or you're going to have you're going to put yourself on a platform that others can get free advice and then use that. And there are a lot of clients that reach out to me that end up being my clients that generate through YouTube. And so it's a powerful tool, just as well as social media or anything else. I always say that word of mouth is your best friend or your worst enemy. So to me, that's why I strive to be the best that I can be and give the best advice. So to me, this is my number one about hinge cutting. Whether you believe in short hinge cuts, whether you believe in high hinge cuts, whether you don't believe in hinge cuts at all, the number one thing to remember is always focus on safety first. A high hinge cut, and I'm a 6'6" guy, so if I were to hang onto a saw at chest level, it's already a high hinge cut to me, higher than what I would recommend. So, but if someone put that up and I recommended chest high, well, chest high to me is head high and face high to a lot of other folks. So that's the number one reason why I don't do that, because I don't want that chain and the saw itself, even if the chain does not come off the bar. And I've been in, even if it doesn't come off the bar, let's finish that. It's still at head height. Yes, you have a break on the saw itself, which stops the chain, but one, it's at your face level, or up above your face, at your chest, at your throat, whatever the case is, it's up above. If it doesn't jump off, if something doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen a lot, but even if the chain doesn't come off, and when them chains do come off, it's a whip effect, and they will reach all the way behind, a lot of times behind. I've had them come off and hit my arm, all the way behind the saw. So, if you got an 18-inch bar and it goes, a foot, let's say a foot behind, it hits your arms, it surely would hit you in the face or hit you in the throat. So, and a lot of this stuff, sometimes we're doing this, I would never recommend doing hinge cuts alone, but it happens. A lot of us that work on properties, on just an individual, not a business side of it, not a consultant side of it, but just the normal property manager works alone a lot. Whether it's trimming shooting lanes, whether it's hinge cutting, whether it's doing your food plots, and there's a lot to be said for that. But one of the biggest things is, guys, is just there's some topics here in safety. First one is just don't put that up towards your head, because even, like I said, even if it doesn't come off, even if it doesn't come off in the bar or the saw shelf jumps and it gets hung up, and there's just a million things that could go wrong at the wrong time to put yourself in harm's way. So that's the first thing that I'll answer there is just don't go down that road of having that there. So now the second topic is that we need to talk about on that is the safety itself. Not only comes from just the saw, the safety part of it comes from the tree itself. Now, it's hard to say only hinge cut certain size trees, because we don't know every situation that every viewer that's watching this, or every client that goes to watch. I know them size because I'm boots on the ground, the size of the tree, because I'm boots on the ground on those locations. The problem with this is, guys, is there's a lot of consultants still, and I hate to even label them consultants, but they're consultants that are designing this stuff from afar. So not only have they never been to the property, they don't know the size of the product that the customer or the client is working with. So what happens is you're saying, hinge cut something, well, 4 inches there and 6 inches, 8 inches, they might have a 10 or 12 inch tree. When that happens, you are setting yourself up for a barber chair. And folks, if you've never seen a barber chair happen, you haven't been in the woods very long. It's kind of like the old saying about missing a deer, or wounding an animal. If you haven't done that, you haven't been in the woods long enough, right? So to me, I've been blessed enough to have been in the woods long enough, and with on the equipment, on the ground, with a saw in my hand, that really I've seen those things happen. I've got a great friend of mine that does hazardous work, and I'm telling you right now, if we called him on the phone and we said, what's the number one thing that you need to watch for when you're if you were to hinge cut or you were to do any of that stuff at head level, I guarantee you the first thing out of his mouth would be, watch for your barber chairs. So that's outside of the saw itself. So, and what that is just to explain that to folks that don't know that, is what happens is the tree starts to fall because it's connected still at the tree. It can't get away from the tree, and the pressure, the top of the tree hits something else or hits an obstruction, which sends a back motion, and it will, instead of falling off the stump, hopefully it falls off the stump if there's enough momentum. But what happens is that catches and it draws all the force back to that hinge, and what it does is it pushes the hinge, it pushes the tree off the hinge. Now you've got the stump at chest level or head level, and that thing's coming right at your face. So you don't have to be standing right next to it. And a lot of, a good safety tip is to, when you're hinge cutting this stuff, even if it's low, is to get the saw in, make the hinge, if you're using your habitat hook, start to pull it down, whatever the case is, and the sawyer gets back out of the way. Put yourself back out of the way. If you're using the habitat hook, by all means, be cautious, have your hat on, or whatever. I'm guilty of this as well. You've probably seen some videos where I don't have my chaps on, I don't have, the proper headgear, I don't have proper eye gear. I'm just as guilty as the next guy. But go to the extent of getting back away from that. So if that barber chair happens, a barber chair can happen on a low hinge cut, let alone being at your head, your chest, or your head level. So those are the two things that I wanted to touch on safety. So the side cover part of it is what was kind of brought up in this video, this link that I was sent. So the side cover part of it, guys, versus canopy. If you go back on my videos, you will not see where I said that deer do not bed under canopy. They will. They will bed under the canopy. There's no doubt about that. Now, in this video, the gentleman also said that you cannot create diversity if you're only doing one style of hinge cutting. That doesn't give you diversity. So I'm gonna kind of touch on that. Where I get my diversity from is not just the different diversity in that location. I get my diversity because of different areas on the property through the design, and we're going to touch on that, so that makes more sense. But so that they don't need the canopy to bed under. They need the side cover. The side cover is at deer level that they get from a low hinge cut, so the stump itself, and also so that the product that I call, or the trunk of the tree, is still connected obviously on a hinge, and it's that 3 or 4 foot level. So as soon as it's tipped over, now it only takes about, let's say on a let's use round numbers, let's say a 60-foot tree, that's only, that would be like, depending on the contour of your ground, that would be like maybe 8 or 10 foot from the trunk, or from the hinge itself, from the stump, from the hinge out there 8 or 10 feet, and that's now at what you could consider side cover. So it's obstructing wind. So that is the one thing that you're trying to create. So when you're doing these hinge cuttings, you're trying to create side cover and reachable brows. That's what you're trying to create. Hinge cutting is not meant for screening. Now, I say that is not meant for screening. It's not meant for screening to get human pressure by. You can use screening. I think since I watched this video, I think that's one of the things that this gentleman was doing, was screening to keep the deer screened from where they were from seeing out. But it's the same theory. If you're trying to screen a deer so you don't get busted getting in and out of a tree stand, the tree stand's too close. So instead of mocking or saying that high hinge cuts don't work and we don't know what we're talking about, we could very easily say that you don't know what you're talking about because your darn tree stand's too close to the hinge cutting, which I see numerous times. So to me, it's kind of that, like, that old saying, if you got one finger pointing at somebody, there's 3 pointing back at you. So instead of tearing the industry down from folks that really have seen this turn ugly with safety features, and also not setting your clients up for that, because it's that, the diversity that we were called out on this video was just, I think it's a, the object, or the point of the video was, you can't have the diversity if you do the same style of hinge cuts, low hinge cuts, all in the same spot. You have to have different elevations of canopy and different elevations of hinge cutting. Well, I get that different structure along the transition areas. I get that in different parts of the farm. So where I differ is I think they may have touched on this too, I don't just do pockets. And I believe that the gentleman, like I said, had touched on that. I don't just do pockets either. I do my hinge cutting along the corridors and along the transition areas outside of my tree stands. So anywhere of the stand location, and so anywhere outside of it that you can get in and out of the stand locations, like we've always talked, along that point, or along that transition, away from the point of impact, we go to hinge cutting. And the reason is that kind of pulls, it gives more potential for more deer to bed, just not in pockets. And like we have talked before, I think that's a huge missing link in the industry, where some of the designs out there, and I'm not calling anybody out on this at all, but because there's not just one person that does it, there's many people that do it. I used to do it years ago, but over the years I've learned that abandoned pocket, let's say with hinge cuts in it, doesn't tie or doesn't relate back to any other part of the design, because it's too, to me, what I see is, so on my 7 client trip that I had in 8 days, a couple of weeks ago, like a month ago now I guess it was, I've got 3 of them planned this year, but that one, all 7 of those clients on that trip all had the same problem. They all had pockets, whether they did it or they were designed or recommended to do so. They all had pockets that were kind of abandoned out on their farm, and it didn't tie back to anything. So I agree. I don't just do pockets either, but I do the hinge cutting outside of there. We kill cut along those areas that are too close to the stand locations. And then we go to hinge cutting, like I said, that could be 50 yards from the tree stand. If you got contour, that could be 150 yards. It all depends on your contour and where your food sources are at. So that's where I get the diversity that a lot of folks don't get. But as far as diversity in your bedding, in that same location, like we were, kind of called out on here, if you will, the diversity of it is having the correct tree structure off the hinge, low on the ground, so the tree, one, stays alive, two, so you have the regeneration and the structure that, or the regrowth that comes off the trunk of the tree itself, and your stump. So you have the stump jumps, you have the, from flush cutting, just flush cutting popple, which, in this video he was hinge cutting popple, which I don't ever recommend hinge cutting popple, because it's popple does not hinge cut. It doesn't stay alive. Now there are some situations as far as really tucking in kind of a screen that I've seen some folks do on the edge of food plots to kind of really separate, really give that kind of a wall so the deer can't see out into it. They've done high hinge cuts because they went over a bank, something like that. Yeah, but you're not looking for the tree to stay alive. So is it okay if it's 10 foot in the air? I guess yes, but it's dangerous, So I have never ran into a spot where I recommended that, because like I said, I feel that if you're trying to screen deer from a stand location, with bedding debris, your stand is too close. So that's the way I look at it. That's my outtake on it. I don't put my clients that close. So somebody that's 25 years old and can belly crawl in and out of that was kind of an ex-Marine, a Navy SEAL, if you want. I don't know what it would take to get to those tree stands, but or has a magic wand that you can wave over your head and disappear and get in and out of the tree stands. I don't know what it takes, guys, to get in and out of those stand locations, but the normal person cannot get in and out of those stands. A normal person from the age of 30 to 70 that are climbing up and out of tree stands, we all try to be quiet, but it takes one arrow, it takes something dinging on the ladder, it takes one pop of the tree stand, and it's shot. So to me, I don't set my clients up for that failure. Now, if you want to do that yourself on your properties, if you want to try to get that stand as close as you can to that, and you think you can get out of it, then all the more power to you. So that kind of goes along with this whole let's point fingers at other consultants. And I've done some direct videos before as well, but I've never called anybody out. And so these four links that were sent to me were actually two of them. I don't know about all four of them, but two of them were a direct conversation with this professional, we'll say, and I know my name was brought up. So let's get back to the bare roots of why we're really doing this and what we need to be promoting for clients that are watching this. And let's be honest with the people that are tuning in, the viewers. So they've got the right tools, and one, we can keep them safe, and the other is they understand what hinge cutting really is. Hinge cutting is to provide side cover, and it's to provide food at reachable heights. Period. That's what it's meant to do. And so you can get diversity in those, like we talked, to finish on that. You can get diversity by the low hinge cuts, which opens up the canopy, which gets regeneration from the forest floor and your structure, and the regeneration that's coming off the log itself and the stump. So that's your diversity. That's where the diversion comes from. The diversity has nothing to do with you need high hinge cuts, you need low hinge cuts, you need to give them, because in my bedding areas, all my designs, I always recommend that the folks drop spruce trees in. So there's another, diversity of it. So there's many tools that I do that I don't have to have high hinge cuts and put folks in danger or make it look cool that deer bed underneath it, because we're going to talk about this in number 3 here. So let's lead into that right now. The high hinge cuts do nothing but, yes, they will bed under them. I'm not, and we'll touch on this again. I'll say that time and time again. I find deer beds under a canopy. I find deer beds under white pine limbs that hang way out. I find deer beds, they tuck themselves up under the side of spruce trees. They will bed under canopy. I've never said that they wouldn't, but to me, it's wasteful. Hinge cutting so that's number 3, wasteful product. So no, so the hinge cutting is a very controversial topic to begin with. It's something that, as habitat managers, as you know, whether you're a professional, whether you're a consultant, whether you're a consumer, a landowner, whatever the case is, when you bring the word hinge cutting up, as this was directed towards us, it can get heated in a real hurry. So here's the deal. The reason that I don't do that is because, not saying that they won't use it to bed under. The deal is it's wasteful. You're not, if you're going to cut a tree and you're going to lay or put a saw into, or recommend that a client cuts a tree down on their own property and doesn't use it, other than just you know, if you're not going to put it down on the ground and cut it up for firewood to heat your home or sell it as a log, then it has to be useful. It needs to not go to waste. And a high hinge cut, that tree goes to waste, because the deer will bed in that same spot. If the hinge cut's done correctly, they'll bed in that same spot that they bedded under that canopy. They'll bed in that 10 times the same way as they will if that canopy is there. So I think that's a huge delusion, or a myth, or a misconception, I guess you could say, is the wasteful product here, guys, is it has to be low enough to get so the deer, obviously, as soon as that is done from the scar that they can reach, you know, the reach, to me, if they can't reach the scar, it's too high. So that's kind of how you gauge. Yes, they will stand on their feet, but guys, on a trunk itself, that you have that 6 foot in the air, 8 foot in the air, I've seen some of them, you know, on a 60-foot tree, like we've talked, by the time that the top of that tree hits the ground, if it ever hits the ground, which most hinge cuts, most people that are hinge cutting, the top of the tree never hits the ground to begin with. So you've got them hung up on stuff, you're creating canopy out there, and don't get me wrong, you cannot control some of these trees. I understand that. Like I said, I've been in the woods long enough, guys, that you are going to have some trees hung up, you're going to have some trees that don't touch the ground. I get it. But you need to go in there and try to take the habitat hook and pull them down so the deer can reach them. Because if you're going to destroy the tree and you're going to try to lay that, to cut that tree and lay it down, don't destroy it completely. It has to go to use, or don't hinge cut it at all. Find another way to create that. I would rather see folks cut the tree completely off and just use the structure in a bedding area so the light comes in, so then you have diversity as far as the dead tree itself, the killed cut tree, and then all of your, so they can use that as a bedding and block, or they can use that as side cover, and then let all the regeneration come up through that and get your diversity that way, than I would a high hinge cut. And that's, I've seen high hinge cuts to me tie into another situation here, but high hinge cuts to me really tie into a poor management deal, where it creates this tornado effect that I see all the time. So in this video, and I'm not going to share it, but you could probably find it. It's pretty visible out there. If it was sent to me, it'll probably been sent to other people. You can see a lot of the canopy in there is tied in, and it looks like a tornado. Even this gentleman in this video says he's going to leave it there, and he's going to leave it all there, and then he's going to go back and cut his corridors out of it, or his whatever he referred to them as corridors or transition areas or whatever. He's going to go back in and cut them out. Well, here's the deal: if you would have directionally hinge cut those trees to begin with, you wouldn't have had to cut those, because now not only do you have the trees that are high hinge cut, now you're taking the whole value of the tree out, because you're cutting the top of the tree off to make your corridors, which that was reachable product for the deer. Now you've totally taken the complete value. So now in some of these bedding areas, there's just not the product to waste. So if you lay the stuff down and then you come back in 2 weeks later and you carve the whole top of the tree out because of your corridors, you're wasting the tree. It's a wasted product. And to me, I'm not here to set my clients up to waste their trees. Like I said, I'd rather see them cut down and laid on the ground, or cut them down and just make pockets of spruce and debris and there's switchgrass pockets, whatever we got to do. but use the tree in some other way. Use just the upshoots that jump off the stump itself, whatever the case is, instead of the tree going to waste. So you really have to watch, guys. You really have to watch where this information is coming from, and how they're going about doing it. Is it on their own parcels? Are they doing it and recommending this to clients? Because at the end of this video, we're going to tie into this right here. So we're going to jump into number 4, and I'll come back to that topic where I was going to touch on. So planning, the one thing that jumped out to me in this video is this. So not only do we have finger pointing going on, we have high hinge cuts, which we all know the truth on high hinge cuts, and then to top it all off, we have micro food plots being planted inside of these bedding areas, inside of the bedding areas, hinge cuts all the way around it, low hinge cuts, high hinge cuts, and planting an alfalfa micro food plot. Well, guys, this number 4 you should just focus on number 4. If you didn't learn anything about 1 through 3, and you get to number 4, you should be able to wash 1 through 3, because if you're planting alfalfa and clover, alfalfa, any of a holding material, a product inside of your bedding area, then that is bad advice. Like I've got written right here, I've got bad advice 101. That should trump everything that we have anything to do with finger pointing or name calling, or saying beliefs don't work and it's my way or no way. Because if you're planting food plots inside of your bedding area, you probably really shouldn't be giving advice to begin with, and you certainly shouldn't be pointing fingers at somebody that does this for a living, that sees what really works. So, and at the end of that, I guess that's what I'm going to end with, is this. So I have this year, and I'm not exaggerating, I'm not bragging, I'm just telling the viewers how real this problem really is. Folks, I have, out of my 60 clients that I have on the books right now, I went through them last night, I've got 22 clients just this year. I didn't even go into last year. 22 clients this year that have had a consultant in the industry, have called them before and worked on their property. And I have, inside of those 22, all of them have had hinge cuts done. All of them have had popple that have been hinge cut. All of them have had high hinge cuts done. All of them have called me to cure the problem. So I'm not saying that it's just they're calling me because I'm the best thing out there. I'm saying is people are reaching out to folks that are doing things different for a reason. If the high hinge cuts worked, planting food plots inside of bedding areas worked, and hinge cutting popple trees worked, I wouldn't be getting a phone call to fix it. So let's be realistic. Let's stay in our own lane. If you've got things that you believe in, like I've got things that I believe in, let's make sure that those are portrayed through our own channels, and really dig deep on what that information is. And like I said, we're gonna end this video the same way we started it. If you are recommending high hinge cuts, if you're a consultant watching this, whether it's the gentleman that did this or not, if you're any consultant or you're thinking about being a consultant, if you are recommending high hinge cuts to your clients and you are setting them up for a safety hazard, prepare yourself for a lawsuit, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And to be honest with you, I hope it happens. It needs to happen a couple of times. I don't want anybody to get hurt, but it needs to happen out there, because it needs to be this publicized. I don't do that because I don't want my name attached to that. I don't want to set my clients up for that danger, and I certainly don't want to be tied into a lawsuit when somebody says, this video, I watched it online, free information, I watched it, and I took this plan or this process that I was told that's what I needed to do, and I went out and I slashed my throat, or I scarred my face, or it killed somebody. So if that's what you're going to recommend, let's start at the top before we even touch on the rest of this, and really focus on what you're setting your clients up for failure to begin with, just as a number one, as that safety hazard. So it's kind of like I said, I'm not worked up about it. I'm just doing very direct comments back to it because it's not the only one. And I'll probably get a letter from this gentleman, whatever. It's happened before, no big deal. But it's the deal is we all have our way. You know, there's some very big names in this industry that I won't call out on this video or this channel, but there are some very big names that have forgotten more than I'll ever learn. It's like, you know, I heard that years ago when we were in the excavation world. So my dad he's got a resume that's twice as long as my leg, which is about twice as long as his. But the deal is that man has forgotten more than I'll ever learn about excavation, about being an equipment operator. But the realistic part of that is I've learned more from him than I'll ever learn from anybody around, because he teaches the raw truth. He teaches the way of School of Hard Knocks, and it's honest. There's no BS attached to it. There's no safety feature that he's going to just overlook to get the job done. If you start overlooking the safety feature, whether you're in excavation, whether you're in hinge cutting, whether you're in forestry itself, whether you're a basketball coach, if you start overlooking the safety features, you're setting your customers or your clients or your students up for failure. So I think that's what's been done here, and I think that, like I said, I don't disagree that high hinge cuts, or as far as a canopy, that deer will bed under them. They will. I mean, deer bed everywhere. Deer bed out in a switchgrass field. In Michigan, I mean, there's probably deer with our high pressure. There's probably deer bedded in abandoned houses. But are we going to go? Put old run-down abandoned barns out in the middle of every field because deer will bed in them? I mean, come on. It's like hanging a ribbon for a licking branch. It's like, will they use it? Well, there might be a deer walk up to a pink ribbon hanging off from a tree and smell it once on a camera. Well, that's what you need to do. Well, come on. There's a lot of things that tie into this industry that a lot of people have tried to make a name for themselves that just don't work. The biggest thing is, whether you believe it or not, if that's what you believe, that's fine. Promote it. Go about your business. But when you call people out, respect or expect a response.